a new silver company for investors, with Keith Neumeyer agreeing to become a major shareholder. Luke Norman, co-founder of Gold Standard Ventures, is the new chairman, and the company has acquired 3 former First Majestic silver properties. To learn more about this must-own silver stock,
go to crushthestreet.com/silver1. That's crushthestreet.com/silver1. Hello, everyone, and welcome into crushthestreet.com. You know, many people are wondering about precious metals and, what's going on with gold and silver, especially in the world of $6,500 Bitcoin. And as the 21st century continues to digitize, there's a lot of questions out there. Does the gold-silver ratio matter anymore? And if simply things are evolving from what they used to be. So today, in the news, gold is up, precious metal stocks are up, EU inflation is up, the Fed chairman is getting ready to speak. And I wanted to bring on the line today Greg Crowe, the president and CEO of Silver One, to discuss the markets and dive into this discussion about what it's like running a silver company and the dynamics of what is going on in precious metals right now, and get a full update on Silver One. As you all know, it's a core position here at Crush the Street. So without any further ado, Greg, thanks for coming on the line with me today.
Thanks, Kenneth. It's a pleasure to be speaking with you.
Well, the pleasure's all mine. Greg, let's start off talking about the current environment right now in the metals market. I know you're at a conference in Europe right now. Talk to us about where we're at right now with metals.
Well, you're right. I am about to attend a conference in Munich. It's the annual Precious Metal Conference that happens every November. Usually a pretty heady conference because there's a lot of enthusiasm, particularly in Germany and Switzerland, with regard to precious metals. They're firm believers in precious metals. Now, with respect to the markets, well, markets are always cyclical. We had a bit of a run-up in particularly precious metals, gold and silver prices in 2016, and then we had the downturn following later 2016 into 2017. Now, those fluctuations don't really bother me. I mean, what we've seen post-Trump election has been a very strong market in the U.S., and money is going to go where it perceives to make money, and it went into those markets. Now, a lot of that enthusiasm was brought about by, Trump's potential changes with respect to market regulations, etc., tax legislation coming up. And if he is successful in doing that, maybe we'll see a continuation of strong markets. But if he isn't as successful as has been indicated by some of his past failures, shall we say, then I think you're going to see a return to the investor enthusiasm in gold and silver. And as you mentioned, I'm a silver company, and I'm particularly enthusiastic about silver, particularly in a bull market, which generally performs better on a percentage basis than gold. And what even performs better on a percentage basis are actually junior mining stocks. They actually perform better than the actual physical gold or silver.
Greg, I want to address a topic right now because a lot of people are questioning the value or the role of precious metals in today's world, especially as we are seeing Bitcoin do what it's doing in this digital revolution, if you will. And I guess my question is, do you believe that things are changing, or is everything intact? I mean, to be getting into precious metals now, is that the right contrarian move?
Well, I, again, am a firm believer in the cyclical nature of markets, and that includes commodity markets, and it includes precious metals. Yes, bitcoins are coming into their own, but will they really replace fiat currencies and or gold, silver? Particularly silver. Don't forget, silver can be thought of as a precious metal, but in actual fact, it's more of a commodity. The uses of silver far outstrip the uses of gold in terms of industry. You're looking at the advent of electric cars, solar panels, all use large amounts of silver. Still 20-some% of silver is used in the film industry. Yes, the digital film industry is taking over, but you're still making all those prints and photographs, etc., and they're still using quite a bit of silver. Future uses of silver include removal of air contaminants. They're experimenting with that in Beijing, using silver in filters to remove toxins from the air. You are seeing it in the medical industry. It's used because of its antibacterial properties. You're seeing it used in scalpels, needles, and all sorts of equipment, gurneys, and things like that it will help fight bacteria. You're seeing it additives in medicines and health foods, etc. So silver is going to be, I think, in use for a long, long time. Gold, again, you need something like gold, which is a precious metal, in terms of a backing, particularly in times of insecurity. And we go up and down in this world, and people usually fall back to gold. You can look historically and see what it is that has affected gold in the past, and it's usually some sort of major economic or political catastrophe.
So, Greg, what are your thoughts on the current gold to silver ratio, and do you believe it's important still today in the 21st century?
Yeah, well, the gold-silver ratio historically was pretty constant up until the time that the U.S. started using gold as a backing for its currency, and that was about the late 1800s. Then it fluctuated throughout the 1900s quite a bit. Averaged probably about 40-1 over in the 1900s. Recently, over the past few years, it's more averaged between 55-1, maybe 60-1. Currently, that ratio sits at a whopping 75-76-1. But what's interesting about that gold-silver ratio is the production of silver on an annual basis only outstrips the production of gold by a factor of 10-1. So there's something out of whack. As I mentioned before, that in an upturn bull market, particularly in precious metals, silver usually fares better than gold. So if we do have some sort of correction in the U.S. economy, perhaps the value of the U.S. dollar goes down. We're seeing a return of good economic indicators in Europe. We're seeing a return of good economic indicators in China. So if the value of the U.S. dollar goes down, then hence, usually, the value of gold and silver will go up, and silver will go up accordingly. That will lower the ratio back to what has been an average over the last few years of 50-60-1. So I still believe in that gold-silver ratio. I just think it's out of whack right now.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Greg, so I'm looking at Silver One right now, and on the TSX here, it's SVE, and it's 43 cents. And I think people who are looking to speculate and to get into some deeply discounted stocks right now should really consider Silver One where it's at right now. So if you would, please give us an update on Silver One and where the company's at. I know the company just raised $4.3 million. Let's talk about where that money is going to be spent and just kind of the roadmap going forward into 2018.
Sure. And just from a historical perspective, I think you have to put in context that Silver One has just been trading over the last year. It's a relatively new company, and it didn't really acquire its flagship property, which is the Candelaria Silver past producing mine in Nevada, until earlier in 2017. So we're really just, coming out of the gate, shall we say. Yes, we are discounted. We came out pretty strong in 2016 when the run-up for silver was taking place, and a lot of the other silver companies, some of which are invested into Silver One, they were trading at pretty heady prices at that time, and they've all come off as well. So yes, there could be value in a lot of the different silver companies, including Silver One at this time. So going forward into 2018, we want to look at mainly our Candelaria project in Nevada. As I said, it's a past producer. It was historically, from the mid-1800s up to the mid-1900s, the richest silver producer in all of Nevada, averaging 1,250 grams per ton silver. And that's a pretty good grade when you consider that a lot of the current underground mines, particularly I'll use some examples in Mexico, are producing at 200 to 300 grams per ton silver. Now, what's interesting is the project changed to open pit mining in the 1970s, 80s, and 90s. First with a company called Merco, and then it was taken up by Kinross, who mined it up until 1998. At that time, again, we had a similar situation. Everybody was saying, well, gold and silver are dead. .com is taking over. And .com indeed did take over for about 2.5 years before its bubble burst as well. And what we saw, though, was the sharp decline in precious metal prices. Silver was trading down in the $2 to $3 per ounce range up until probably 2002, 2003. So what happened was Kinross shut the mine down in 1998, not because it ran out of ore, but because of low silver prices. They couldn't make any money. So they shut it down, and then in 2001 sold it to a company called Silver Standard. Now, Silver Standard did a big drill program and outlined a very sizable silver resource, which is outlined on our website and also in our news releases. And with that, they decided not to put it back into production at the time, put to sit on it. But now Silver Standard has changed dramatically over the years, and they are now a gold company. So much so that they've just recently changed their name from Silver Standard to SSR Mining. Now, why is that important? It's important because Silver One came along at just the right time when Silver Standard happened to be getting rid of some of those older silver assets that wanted to focus more on gold. So our timing couldn't have been better with respect to acquiring the Candelaria project at a very good price. So going forward, what we want to do is there's 3 main opportunities at Candelaria. One is we want to look at the old heaps, where there is a historic resource of about 48 million ounces of silver, and we want to look at potentially reprocessing them. We've just acquired permits from the Bureau of Land Management, the BLM, allowing us to drill those heaps, which we want to get completed before the end of 2017. And with the drilling, we'll do metallurgical studies to determine whether we can actually recover economic quantities of silver from reprocessing those heaps. So that's a project that's going to be front and center for us. The other 2 opportunities that are very important is when Silver Standard did their drilling back in 2001 and 2002, they outlined a very high-grade zone of mineralization down dip along the structures, with some results being as rich as 14 meters, averaging 670 grams per ton silver. So we want to target that and test that and see, is there a good high-grade zone underground, keeping in mind that this was the highest grade producer historically. Then the third opportunity is they outlined a sizable resource just on the margin of the 2 old open pits. What's along strike from there? There are numerous old workings that date back pre-1950 with good silver grades, and we want to test to see whether we can outline a lot of additional resources. So that's going to be the real focus for us going into 2018. We'll also do a little work on one of our Mexican silver properties that we acquired when we first started the company in 2016 from First Mining Finance. So that's really where we are.
Greg, so from a fundamental perspective, the company is trading at a roughly $40 million market cap. And I'm wondering, what is the value right now with the projects you have, the opportunity and the cyclicality of the markets? What are the opportunities for investors, not giving financial advice, but just if they were to make their own decision with the company and its current opportunity to purchase shares right now in the open market?
Sure. Well, I think what you first have to be, if you're an investor looking at this, is you have to be a little bit bullish on precious metals, and particularly silver, of course, because that is our focus. And you also have to look at, is this a value opportunity? As you said, we have a $40 million market cap. We have a project that has a very substantial resource, and we believe that with additional work and drilling, we're going to be able to increase that resource. We have a potential near-term production situation and on the old heaps. And if we can actually do that and turn this company into a cash-flowing company in the next 2 or 3 years, then essentially I think that that $40 million market cap will look like a bargain at that time. But you have to have patience, and you have to have a bit of taste for risk as well. Of course, we also have to keep in mind what's the expectation with respect to the cyclical nature of the precious metal markets. But we feel that this is an excellent opportunity. We see other companies that trade at a higher market cap with lesser, shall we say, quality properties than what we have managed to acquire in just the year that we've been trading on the open market.
So I want to address that to some degree here, and that is the brevity of 2016 bull market with the mining shares and how quickly everything went up and then seemed to grind to a halt in 2017. And I guess it was a little underwhelming for a lot of investors, and this is what I've talked to people and they've mentioned to me, is that we've had this really long bear market that beat everyone down, and the bull market, at least what we've seen so far, seemed to happen so quickly. Can you address this a bit before, as we close out this interview?
Sure. Well, I'll try and give my what I believe really happened there was definitely enthusiasm going into the 2016, particularly your election in 2016. Everybody was pretty convinced, I think, that Hillary Clinton was going to take that presidential race and things were going to carry on. There was going to be the same economic policies, etc. And precious metals, I think, looked a little attractive with respect to that continuing debt situation in the U.S., etc. Then what happened was, of course, you had your elections, and it looked like Trump was going to win, and then Trump did win. And he brought in a policy of, well, he talked a lot about bringing in policies of market reform, tax reform, deregulation of the markets, etc. And that got everybody really enthused with respect to the market. He talked about Make America Great Again and the huge expenditures on infrastructure. And all that created a bit of a dynamic environment for the U.S. dollar. Now, precious metals, of course, are tied to the U.S. dollar. They're sold in U.S. dollars. So as the U.S. dollar goes up, then the value of precious metals, even though they might be high for the other currency, goes down with respect to the U.S. currency. And that's pretty well remained to the same at the same level. The U.S. dollar has gone up, gone down, gone up, gone down, but it hasn't really changed substantially yet. Now, that could change. Now, as the U.S. incurs more debt, if Trump is not successful in getting his tax legislation through or his market reforms through, Or if there is another event that happens, then you might see the U.S. dollar decline a bit in value and a resurgence of gold and silver prices. So, it's all tied to politics. It's all tied to the strength of the U.S. dollar, the strength of the U.S. markets, etc. If the markets weaken, the U.S. dollar weakens, the money will go elsewhere. My bet's gold and silver.
Well, Greg, that's a great closing thoughts there. But if you would want to add anything and just give people some words of wisdom as we close out 2017 and go into 2018, what would your thoughts be? And again, thanks for coming on Crush the Street. I really appreciate it. And it's really great to get a full update on what's going on with Silver One. As everyone knows, this is a core position for us here at Crush the Street. And we have the man on the line to really go down, get the full story from. So please take it away.
Yeah. Well, what I tell my investors is to watch the markets. Watch the value of the U.S. dollar. As you said, the Federal Reserve is meeting, and they're going to be determining the economic outlook, etc., and that's going to affect policy. It's going to affect interest rates. If inflation comes back too strong, that's, Mr. Trump wants to spend that much money on infrastructure. Plus, there's things like rebuilding of Texas, rebuilding of Florida, rebuilding of Puerto Rico. We're talking billions of dollars here. And if he wants to do that, that's fine, but that's going to add to inflationary pressures. If the U.S. economy continues to grow, that adds to inflationary pressures. But at the same time, you've got China, you've got Europe coming on strong as well. So will that dollar decline? Will the flavor of the very heady markets, which a lot of people talk about them being in a bubble, if they come off, then look to gold and silver.